Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys my OLT season, I believe it was 12 movie, I guess my entire run. Now, if you guys have been on the channel before, you might have seen that I uploaded a run of my most recent Trick House run. You know, a big movie of how I did throughout the whole season and all that good stuff. And I figured this season is also pretty interesting in the sense that, one, I enjoyed my team, and two, this season OLT actually elected to ban Boots to kind of test out and see, you know, how overpressive it really is, because I know a lot of people in the draft community, and for good reason, believe that Boots is a little bit of an overpressing and overbearing item that is a little bit broken, and I don't know if I fully agree. Even after playing this whole season, I really don't know, but I do think it's a great idea to test things like that, and obviously kind of, you know, make that deduction playing in a metagame, a Gen 8 metagame at least, without them in the game. So I thought that was very interesting and a cool, interesting premise, you know, to kind of show in the video. Haven't played in a Gen 8 draft league, obviously, where boots weren't allowed, and I think that does make a pretty big difference in the building process, obviously, and the drafting process and things like that. But it also allowed them to potentially, you know, test in some things that might be a little bit less easy to deal with boots. Like, as you can see, our first pick is going to be Libero Ace. And obviously Libero Ace doesn't always want to run boots. It wants to run Band and Life Orb or like an extra pill or something like that because of its great coverage. But not having the option to run boots is definitely very, very annoying in the team building process, I learned. So it balanced it out a fair bit, to be fair. And I think like Kieran Black with no Dragon Dance was allowed. Things like that. So definitely a really interesting premise. If you guys do enjoy the video, I do implore you to please drop a like. It really helps me out a ton, as well as subbing if you're new. I'm pretty close to 600. I think I'm at 580 of the time of recording this, so if you can help me out on that journey, I'd really appreciate you. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go over my team really quick, and then we'll jump into all of our games. It's an 8-week season plus playoffs if we potentially make that. So, got a long video. Be sure to buckle down, get some popcorn, something like that. But yeah, as I said before, we grabbed Libero Ace first overall, or our first overall pick. We had second pick in the draft. I really wanted to try Polt so freaking bad, but I went pick one still, even with Libero Ace and KB and all these cool mons allowed, which again makes sense. I would have taken it too. But one of the next best things, Libero Cinderace, one that I've gotten to use a few times and is absolutely insane. Obviously, regular Ace is great, and it's phenomenal speed tier, great attack, Pyro Ball plus U-turns, just such a ridiculously spammable combo. Has solid utility moves and like taunt and things like that. It can court change, which is definitely pretty valuable in a metagame like this, where boots are banned. So I can't just, you know, throw boots on my mons that I don't want to take spikes or rocks and, you know, call it a day. I can actually just, you know, deter that hazard setting altogether, which is nice. But it's really that Libero being able to throw stab U-turns, as well as stab powerballs and stab gunk shots and iron heads and high jump kicks and things like that, makes this thing almost impossible to switch in my mind. It's very hard to deal with this thing over the course of a game with a life orb, or a band, especially if you can click the right button. The only thing that's really balancing that out is going to be the hazards kind of limiting my switching. So we have to be very careful about how we deal with hazards on this team. I think I did good for the most part. Spoilers, I didn't grab a spinner, and looking back on this team, I really wish I had spin, because I think hazard stacking of myself along with a Libero Ace would have been so great. It was very hard for me to justify doing so, only having defog as my removal and wanting to make sure the hazards aren't on the field for my Cinderace. So definitely a great mon to build around, though. Obviously, I'll take it at pick 2 for sure. It was definitely the next best thing on the board in my personal opinion. Last season of OLT, I got to use Zamazenta, which was also there, and I definitely think Libero is probably a lot better than Zamazenta, so I'll definitely take it. Next up, I ended up going with Feeny. Feeny bullies a lot of fat, bulky waters that Cinderace doesn't appreciate, especially if I can bait them in on U-turns. I can either, you know, start setting up Calm Minds, I can knock off their lefties, I can Nature's Madness them down, I can start taunting them, I can defog, which is great, really reliable defogger. Not bad. Phone alarm. Woke up a little early today. But it's a really reliable defogger, which is great for Cinderace, so I can get those rocks away, not have to worry about them as much. Great setup options in Calm Mind and Iron Defense, plus like Draining Kiss and Sword Power, you know, the typical like cheesy Feeny sets that really bully some teams sometimes. Great Stall Breaker with Taunt, like I said. Snowball, great mon. It also punishes rocks and grounds, which Cinderace might not appreciate, so on a U-turn I can get him in for, I can get Feeny in for relatively free, or just, you know, hard switching in because it's pretty darn bulky in itself. So I really do like that aspect of it, but I wanted to grab something else with like that pseudo wheel that I kind of had that complemented Cinderace well, and I think Ferrothorn is great in a format without boots, for sure. It just really ups the value of that spike stacking potential. Now again, I really wish I had spin, because spoilers, I don't utilize Ferrothorn to the most of its capabilities in a format like this, in my opinion, just because I felt like I couldn't stack as much as I wanted to. But in theory, it's supposed to get up spikes to where when I'm getting my Cinderace, you go into your, 1 or 2 time check and 2 spikes and rocks are up. You take that chip and a U-turn and then you get to a KO by, X move next time. Like, you're not switching anymore. That's kind of the idea. It's a great water resist too. I can leech up on things. I can knock things off. I can Iron Defense body press up or curse if I want to as well. Plenty of options with Ferrothorn. Definitely just a very reliable mon. It does what Ferrothorn does. I don't think I have to go too in depth on what Ferro does. Why it's great with these 2 Pokemon right here. Yeah, that's gonna be Pharaoh. Next up, I end up grabbing Lottie, which is actually another very, very solid defogger. Now, it's not a mon I want to run defog on a lot, but it is a backup option in case I either am not bringing Feeny, or I want Feeny to be more offensive, or Feeny to be set up, or it's like a stall breaker Feeny that week. It definitely gives me an option. It gives me a solid 110 speed tier. So with Cinderace, I have that 119 speed tier, obviously, which is 115 plus. And I have Lottie at 110, so I'm kind of filling out these speed tiers. 85 with Feeny. Pharaoh's just very slow. So I'll definitely take that for sure. Great overall coverage. Then I got Mystical Fire and Aura Sphere, which makes it hit, a lot more things that it didn't deal with great before, which is definitely nice. Obviously, Latios is a little bit better, a little bit more offensive, but Latios is still very, very solid. Obviously, we have to be careful about, Misty Terrain, kind of nerfing our Dracos, but definitely not the worst thing in the world. Nice and bulky dragon, a secondary fighting resist on top of Feeny, which is great. Feeny's a little bit more reliable because it's also not weak to knock. So it's overall just a very solid mon. It also gets a Wish too, and I think that's a very slept on aspect of Latias. I've definitely run Wish Lottie before, and I definitely can see myself doing it again. It can Healing Wish up, which is great for something like Cinderace, getting it back in and getting it fully healthy, especially if hazards are up and chipping everything down. I can Calm Mind up, I can be Specs, I can be Life Orb, a bunch of different cool options. Latias does a lot. A little bit more support oriented than Big Latios, but can definitely still function in that offensive role as well. Next up, I want to grab my ground. I want to grab another rocker outside of Ferrothorn, so I end up going with Mamoswine. Ridiculously strong mon, helps me with opposing dragons, which is going to be great. Obviously Ice Shard, being very, very solid. I can obviously EQ through everything. Oblivious is great for blocking Intimidate. Thick Fat, great for resisting ice as a ground type, which is really cool, as well as being neutral to fire as an ice type, which is again very, very cool. I love AV Mamo, Life Orb, Band. It's just an overall really, really fun mon. Click buttons, especially with spikes up. It's pretty hard to switch into Mamoswine. I can knock things off. I can shard it, like I said, crash, EQ, all that fun stuff. So pretty self-explanatory mon. I'm not gonna go super in depth on a lot of these mons because I feel like a lot of them are self-explanatory. Next up, I wanted Tox because I wanted a little bit more of a reliable way to break through waters and form a little bit more of a potent like Volturn core with Cinderace, and I felt like Tox is actually pretty good at that because I feel like it's also an electric that can really punish grounds coming in. Most grounds do not want to take a Boom Burst. Boom Burst is actually probably one of its strongest moves to click in general, so I really do think Tox is actually very solid. Now, it's a really awkward mon to fit, and has a really terrible speed tier, but it's ridiculously strong if you can position it correctly. I don't think it has a terrible Scarf for speed tier, which is nice. Specs just nukes things. I can shift gear and overdrive through with like some throat spray shenanigans and, really break through teams that way, things like that. But again, the main reason I got it is because I really, really thought it was important to make sure that I could really bully bulky waters even more than I can so with something like Ferrothorn, which comes in, if terrain isn't up, I take a Scald, something like that, it's going to be just a little bit more annoying to deal with those waters. I want an immediate way to punch through them, be faster than them, Volt Switch out, get more momentum, things like that. So that's going to be Tox. Next up, I grabbed Mega Kang. The first time I'm actually ever trying Mega Kang, and I'm really, really excited. I was really, really excited. I drafted this team like 3 months ago. I was really, really excited for this thing. When you think of Mega Kang, or at least when a lot of people think of Mega Kang, especially if you're newer to draft and compared to Pokemon, you think of like, Power Up Punch, Fake Out, normal move, and then like Earthquake or something like that. Or like Crunch or something like that, Sucker. That offensive Parental Bond Mega Kang, which is definitely solid, but I think definitely not where Kang's strength lies. You see that insane bulk, that 105, 100, 100, great speed tier in 100, and then 125 attack. This thing is ridiculously bulky, insanely bulky. In conjunction with Wish, this thing is a phenomenal ghost resist, a phenomenal just bulky normal pivot to keep the rest of my team healthy, and I think that's really important. You'll see with my next 2 members, they really appreciate Wish support, as well as Ferrothorn and Feeny. It gives me a really, really reliable Wish passer outside of Latias, which I'm not going to obviously run very often. And I just spoiled my next 2 picks. Oops, those 2 really appreciate Wish as well, though, which is definitely nice. But I can Power Up Punch through things. I can just Wish Tech on things. I have great overall coverage. I have that Gen 1 coverage. I could Tech on a neat Fire Blast for some random Sizzle or something like that. I can Power Punch through teams. I can Sucker Punch. I can be offensive. I can Yawn things. I can Toxic things. It can be just very, very annoying, and I think Kang is very, very solid and kind of gluing this team together defensively, because nothing on my team really has great reliable recovery outside of Latias right now, and I think that's super, super important to keep everything healthy in a format like this, so I'll take it for sure. Next up, kind of spoiled it, but I got Scrafty. I needed a dark type. Also gave me a fighting type. Another Pokemon that loves to get wished into. Has 3 great abilities in Shed, Skin, Moxie, and Intimidate. They all have great uses. I can Dragon Dance. I can Bulk Up. I can be AV, which is probably the quintessential Scrafty set, like, ever. I don't know, at least when I think of Scrafty, I think of AV. That might just be me in my very close-minded building ways, who knows. But Kang is great with it, in my opinion. They pair together very nicely as ghost resists slash immunities, which is going to be very, very nice. I can knock things off, which is, again, great in a format like this. No more lefties, nothing like that. I'm going to really chip you down with my hazards. Yep. Next up, we have Reggie Rock, who's another great rocker. I had this in a recent season of APA Evolution. I loved using Reggie Rock in Gen 8. Hadn't used it in a while, and definitely think this mod is great. Obviously, a really reliable rocker, a really reliable flying resist, and that's something I did not have up to this point. If you look at my team, weak to flying, neutral, is a toxicity, neutral, 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 neutral. So, like, I didn't have a good flying resist up to this point. It was Ferrothorn, and you're gonna see I kind of have to cover a little bit of Ferrothorn's neutralities because of its steel typing. It's like grass steel typing here with my next 2 picks, and Reggie Rock was just one of them. It also gives me that, again, that third rocker, which I think is really nice to have multiple options. I can body press through things with that base, 200 defense stat. I can curse up. I don't know if it gets iron defense, does it? It does get iron defense, so I can also iron defense up, which is great. I have counter, which is another cool option. It's sturdy, so again, a reliable rocker too. I could guarantee get them up in most instances. Solid coverage, decent offensively as well. 100 attack with great coverage, so again, very solid mod. I love Reggie Rock, great low tier rocker in my opinion. And lastly, a really funny pick because we have a spiking grass type already, but I ended up grabbing Quilladin because a lot like flying, look at my team and tell me my ground resist. I don't have a ground resist right now. Weak to ground. Neutral, neutral, weak, neutral, 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 weak, neutral. I did not have a ground resist. That's kind of just a byproduct of drafting Ferrothorn, and I felt like Quilladin at the point value that I had left, available, my budget left, I felt like Quilladin was the best thing available. So I ended up going with that. I know it's a little bit redundant having that grass type spiker, but it's still very solid. It gives me like a Zygarde check, which I think is really, really important. And it gives me that good edge quake check if I really need it. At least forces some prep in that regard. And I can, spike up with it. I can taunt things. I can be annoying with toxic. I can synth up. So definitely a solid, like really, really low tier option that kind of covers that weakness, despite me kind of having that double grass, which is typically kind of weird. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, at least, but that's going to be the team. I believe we want to play Devin. I will be right back with that game. Alrighty, so week 1, we ended up going up against Devin. You can see the team that he elected bring. He has some Sun offense with Torkoal, Shiftry, Heatran, as well as a Landorus Therian. I believe that was Mega Gardevoir and a Kartana. You can see the team that we have. We have like an extra belt for attacks. Libero Ace, which actually goes absolutely crazy in this game, especially with the Sunbeam provided for us. I believe for Low Kick, U-Turn, Pyro Ball, and I don't even remember the 4th move. It might be Iron Head, it might be Gunk Shot. I don't remember, to be completely honest, because it's really all we need to click in this matchup. Then we have an Oblivious 3 attacks, Life Orb, Mamoswine with Stealth Rock, just, I believe, for Crash or Earthquake, Ice Shard, and Rocks. We have a knockoff. No, I don't even think it's knockoff. I think it's Moonblast, Scald, Defog, Taunt Feeny? I don't remember the 4th move. Then we have a Scarfed Toxtricity. We have a Spadef, Power Punch, Facade, Wish, Protect, Mega Kang, which does very, very well in this game, in my opinion. Does phenomenally. And then we have a pretty physically defensive rocking, or spiking Ferrothorn, which is obviously great as well. So let's go ahead and jump into the game. I believe we're just going to lead off this game with our Mamoswine, because it really doesn't have great pivots on his team if you just look right here. He doesn't have phenomenal switch-ins to it. Obviously, Ice plus Ground kind of smashes him a little bit, as he is going to go hard Torkoal. I do elect to get up my Rocks here. Now, maybe it is in my best interest to just Earthquake on that turn, because if I can 2-hit KO this Torkoal, at least force it out so that he has to save his son or something like that, I'm in so much better of a spot, because in hindsight, if I Rock up, this is still a pretty free spin, because he sees that I'm Oblivious, he knows that I get nuked by a Lava Plume or any Fire move or anything like that, so I'm kind of forced into a pretty tough position by rocking up here. So if I'm going to make the prediction to him switch out, maybe it's my play to EQ, who knows. I go Feeny right here, though, as he does about 14 with that Lava Plume. I am going to throw off a Nature's Madness, expecting to maybe pivot out, but he does elect to stay in. Makes sense, he does live 1 Scald, obviously, with, the Fish Train, things like that. As I am going to defog right here as he ends up rapid spinning. I know that he can rapid spin freely, and I don't want rocks on my side. For my Cinderace, obviously I can get up my rocks again later with Mamo, so I'm not super concerned about that, obviously. So I'll definitely take it. I'm going to go for a Scald this next turn. Only do 38, showing he's pretty spread, I believe, as he does end up rocking up right here. And then I'm going to defog again as Kartana comes hard in. Now, obviously, I'm not going to want to stay in here. I kind of need my Feeny. It's definitely very, very important for this game. So I'm going to put it on to Ferrothorn. He makes a good play, goes for a Sacred Sword. I get a little bit of Iron Barbs here, and kind of pivoting out, saying like, oh no, I can't really give this thing its Beast Boost if it's Scarf. Kind of puts me in a tough spot. I end up going hard Toxtricity and getting killed by a knockoff with a crit. Now, does that really matter? In the grand scheme, not really too much. I kind of got mad about it over here. I think that's just in-game tilt talking though, because it's not like knockoff didn't 2-hit KO me, and I don't have pivot otherwise. Like, I'm not pivoting out. And more so sucks that he's not Scarf. If he's Scarf, then I'm in a better position there. I guess maybe that's why I'm mad. Who knows? But I definitely don't think that crit mattered in all actuality, because I already know he's not choiced. He has to click it again, and he gets his KO still. Like, I'm just sacking Tox at that point anyways, because obviously I lost my Scarf, so not the biggest deal in the world. I go out into Cinderace though, as right here I do get a pretty free KO with Pyro Ball. Not much wants to switch into this thing, obviously, so we are going to knock that thing out, which is great. I believe Landorus comes out next, is going to intimidate me. Definitely annoying. I go out into Ferrothorn basically to just sack it off, but he ends up going for a U-turn, which is definitely interesting because I don't have an EQ resist in the slightest. He's going to go into Shift Tree. I know this thing has Heat Wave, but I actually don't have great counterplay to it at this point, and I'm going to let it go down right here. I end up going Cinderace here, and I think this was a bit of a weird play too. I think maybe my play was to go Kangaskhan or something like that. Maybe Protect and Mega up, get my Mega off, because if you look at things like Heatran or Mega Gardevoir and things like that, I don't deal with them particularly well right now, and getting my Mega up and getting that bulk in, like getting my bulk up like that, is really, really important for this end game. But I am making the offensive play and going Cinderace. I know I live a Life Orb knockoff or Life Orb Dark Pulse or anything like that from this thing, so I like to go into that and just U-turn to get either momentum or a free kill on this history. As you're going to see, it does end up going for a knockoff, which is definitely unfortunate. I do lose my expert belt, but I don't really need it, to be completely honest. I'm able to knock out this Shiftry and pivot right out into my Tapu Fini, which is definitely nice as well. So out comes Kartana. This is definitely unfortunate. It's going to drop a big Solar Blade, which is going to nuke the hell out of my Fini. Definitely not great, because now if you look at my team, I am especially weak to that Heatran. I have absolutely nothing for an offensive Heatran without my Kangaskhan Mega, and I didn't get that opportunity to, force that Mega Evolution yet, which is... Oh, I did get it, but I didn't take it. Right here, I'm going to go into Cinderace. I'm just going to click Pyro Ball, knock out that Gardevoir, which is great, obviously. Heatran is going to come out. Out comes my Kangaskhan, and again, this is a bad play on my end. So this game, not the best showing from your hero. I'll be 100% honest. Not the best play by me, in the sense that I probably should just sack... Oh, I'm in a tough position, right? Because if there's a Scarf, I'm in a bad position regardless. But with the sun being up still, and me not having my Mega, I'm 2-hit KO'd by, like, everything this thing wants to go for. For sure. Like, just absolutely 2-hit KO'd by it. And I needed to get this Mega off, because this is my win con. This is a great win con, in fact. I just need to get rid of that Kartana. It beats the last two, potentially, which is great. Especially if I have Mammoth in the back. I need this for Heatran at the very least, though. I definitely need it for Heatran. So it does put me in a tough position now, because I go hard into this. I am 2-hit KO'd pretty much. I believe I go for a Protect on this turn, as I should live it out of Sun, which is great, and I can try and Wish Up right here. You're going to see Flamethrower's going to pop, it's going to do 35, and it's actually going to end up burning me. And this is ridiculously bad. Absolutely terrible, in fact. So, unfortunately, we are going to lose our Kangaskhan there, and that kind of seals the game. I don't Ice Shard here for some reason. I think I was trying to catch like a Kartana pivot or like a Choke or something like that, or pivot back out into like a Scarf Heatran or something like that. But he ends up just booming on me. Doesn't really need it, so I guess that's pretty fair. And Heatran's going to come back in, and it is going to Earth Power me, and I'm going to lose. So that was definitely not the best performance for me. I'm pretty not too happy about that, especially looking back. This is probably the first time I've watched this game since I played it, and looking back, I didn't play it very well. And we're going to have to bounce back next week, but definitely not the best performance from me. We'll see what we can do, though. I'll be right back with you, too. Alrighty, so week 2, we end up going up against Pi. You can see the team that he has. He has Yard, Sand with the X-Drill, Charizard Y, Slowbro, Clefairy, Raikou, and Tyranitar. The team we're rocking out with is pretty cool this week. We're rocking out with extra built Cinderace again, just because I don't want to take Life Orb Chip along with that sand and potential hazards and things like that. But we're actually mixed this week. We're Power Ball, U-Turn, Low Kick, and Electro Ball, which does a ridiculous amount to slow, bro. Just because of how slow it is and how fast we are, and obviously the Protean boost and or the Libero boost, I suppose, and everything like that. We are a Draco, Meteor, Sphere, Wish, and Roost Latias, which is pretty solid in this game. It checks Yard. It gives me Wish support into things like Scrafty and Feeny, which is great. We have a pretty physically defensive Feeny, I believe, this week with Defog, Scald, Nature's Madness, and Draining Kiss. We have a Double Dance Scrafty, because if you look at Pie's team, he actually has pretty bad counterplay to Scrafty, in my opinion. It's just the Clefairy, which isn't the most reliable because it's a Clefairy and doesn't want to get knocked off. So I can knock that thing off and get rid of it. I'm in a phenomenal position to win with Double Dance Scrafty. Just stabs, Drain Punch, knock off, and then bulk up Dragon Dance. We have a, I believe, Life Orb Mamoswine. I believe we're Thick Fat. I think we're Assault Vest. I know this is gonna look bad when I look over here because it's not cropped for this. No, we're Assault Vest, and we're Life Orb. We're Life Orb, and we're Thick Fat though, to hopefully take a pick from that Zard, but spoilers, not really. And then we're a knockoff Leech Seed, Body Press, and a Stealth Rocking Ferrothorn. Just get our rocks up for that. What do you call it? That Charizard, I believe, for double rocks this week because I really wanted to force Rock Strip on the Zard because they don't deal with it super well. But with that being said, we can go ahead and jump into it. I believe I lead off with my Cinderace just because it's a very solid lead overall. However, I am going to hard switch out instead of U-turn right here just to cover any like Scarf Tar shenanigans or anything like that, or like Chople or anything like that. I really don't want to risk that. I don't think it's in my best interest. So I go Ferrothorn because it also covers a play into Slowbro or something like that if that is his pivot. He's going to Rocks up, as am I, but Rocks hurt him more than they hurt me, in my opinion, so unless he spins away the Rocks, I'm not going to defog. If he spins away the Rocks, then I can defog away with my Feeny. Right here, I am going to knock off this Slowbro really quick, and I'm going to pivot hard into Feeny, Scout for a Fire move in case he does end up having that, because no reason to not Scout for it, obviously. But he does end up going for a Teleport and getting a free switch into the Raikou, which is definitely unfortunate, because this thing wants to Volt. I'm in a pretty tough position. However, I do still have a pretty healthy Ferrothorn, so I feel comfortable going into that, because it also covers the Aura Sphere play, in the sense that I don't get too KO'd by it yet, which is definitely very, very clutch. It does show to be leftovers, which is interesting to note. I can just leech up right here, try and keep myself decently healthy going forward, so I can, pivot in on that Raikou and things like that. I am just going to knock again. I don't have Power Up, or I would have clicked it and it would have been in a better spot, but not the biggest deal in the world, as unfortunately Charizard Y is going to get a free switch in, so I'm going to have to go out into my Latias, as I believe a Roost comes off. Yeah, a Roost comes off from the Zard, which again definitely makes sense. So unfortunate, but not the biggest deal in the world. I believe I just throw up a Wish right here as I end up getting Toxic. So great bring by Pie, because now I actually just don't beat this thing 1v1 at all. I try and make a Wish pass out into my Mamoswine, expecting some kind of, I don't know. That was a really terrible play by me. I don't know exactly what switch I was expecting or what was going on. If I thought I lived a hit and just could, get off a big hit afterwards. I have no idea, but it absolutely nukes me, as Charizard wide really should, and I guess I should have ran that Galp before I go hard into it, because I'm just forced to go back out into my Latias. I throw off a big Draco for 57, but at the end of the day, it's not going to help me out much, because obviously I get my special attack dropped, and he can kind of just roost up in my face. I go Feeny right here, though, because I know the sun is ending this turn, so if it has Solar Beam, I'm not going to have to worry about that, obviously, and my Scalds are going to be doing a lot more. Now, out comes Raikou. I believe I just defog. Yeah, so I do defog away just for my my Cinderace, because it is, again, still very, very solid in this game. And then I am going to make the Ferrothorn play, as I believe another Aura Sphere comes out. However, after leftovers, we should be able to take another one, which is definitely very clutch, as Yard is going to end up coming out, and this is a little bit unfortunate. We do get a Leech Seed off on it, which is really important, because again, we're getting our Ferrothorn back and healthy again, and we can make the play into Latias and maybe beat it 1v1 with the Leech Seed, or at least wear it down a bunch. But he makes a good double, goes out into Tyranitar, and at this point, I know I'm not going to get my Latias healthy again. I'm just going to go for an Aura Sphere to get some chip, break some weird sash on it or something like that, because it was a lead, something like that, potentially. So he ends up getting up his rocks. I'm going to save my Latias at this point, though. Go out into Scrafty, take a crunch pretty well, and get a very, very free knockoff. If the Clefairy wants to come in, getting a thing knocked off is going to make it a lot easier to break through it and bully it down, as we do get that knockoff off, get a crit, but obviously it doesn't matter too much, and then the Eviolite is going to be gone right there. We're able to go out into Feeny right here. This will allow me a free defog, or a potential, like, Nature's Madness, something like that. As I believe he was probably expecting Ferrothorn, but Ferrothorn actually can't touch his Clefairy, or expecting Ferrothorn to stand, but
we can't really touch the Clefairy very well. As Yard comes out hard on our Tapu Fini right here, I believe I am just going to stay in, as I know I can lift one Solar Beam, I believe, from that range, and I'm going to be able to Nature's Madness, keep this thing low, and then I'm going to pivot out into my Cinderace and kind of hopefully be able to deal with it from there. As I believe he is going to pivot out into the Slowbro. I'm going to Power Ball because it does more than Electro Ball in the Sun. And then this next turn, I'm going to go for the Electro Ball as the Clefairy ends up coming out. It actually takes 40 freaking %, which is pretty ridiculous. That's not even the Slowbro that's taking that much damage, which is definitely interesting. But I'm just going to Power Ball this turn, do 24, I believe, to the Tyranitar. And then I believe Slowbro comes out as a U-turn. So he's definitely pivoting around it, but I'm chipping the team down so much, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. As Ferrothorn is going to be able to get its free switch in right here, as the Yard ends up coming in. And this is definitely unfortunate. I do get at my rocks, but again, I'm kind of forced to pick one. This is when I do elect to, finally sack off the Latias once and for all. I go hard out into it. I live on one after Toxic. I go for a Roost once, but he ends up just going for a Flamethrower. That's fair. I wanted to cover him trying to Roost and, Roost up as I die to Toxic and drop a Draco. But he ends up just staying in and going for a Flamethrower as a Draco again. So I keep this thing down at 34, meaning it does die to Rocks if he doesn't get that spun away. The Slowbro is going to be able to pivot out. I'm going to go for a Pyro Ball on the Slowbro coming in, and then just go for an Electro Ball and knock it out. So it's cool to see Electro Ball get a KO there. We're going to knock out the Bro, and then out comes the Excadrill. I don't know if this thing's Scarf, and there's no reason for me to ever, really risk it. So I go out into Ferrothorn, because I know that I'm not 2-hit KO'd by this Excadrill at this point. The Clefairy is going to come in. It's going to take a knockoff from my Ferrothorn, which is, again, completely fine. I'm going to go hard Cinderace right here, as he actually ends up going for a Soft Boiled. That's fine. I just go for a Pyro Ball, do 66. He goes for a Thunder Wave, and he misses. And I know he's pretty upset about this, but in the grand scheme of things, how you're going to see this next turn play out, it doesn't matter unless I get fully paired on this next turn, right? Because Clefairy's at 17 right now, right? Incredibly low, incredibly low. If he switches out and saves it, it dies to a +1 Scrafty hit, dies to a +1 Drain Punch. And if I don't get paired and he tries to soft boil up, I obviously just knock him out. What you're going to see is what ends up happening. I end up U-turning out, so if I didn't get fully paired, I U-turn out, knock out the Clefairy, get into my Ferrothorn for free, which is great. Out comes the Tyranitar, which is, again, completely fine. And it's going to pop its Custat, but I'm going to go hard Scrafty just because I am Intimidate. I can cover any type of fire play that's going to happen because it'll obviously SP me anyways. And I can get that free setup opportunity now. I can get this in for free. He ends up rocking up, which is, again, very interesting because I'm going to be able to Dragon Dance again on this Zard sack. I know I don't die to any move the thing wants to go for. And now at +2, I outspeed everything, and I am going to be able to position a Scrafty Sweep, which is, again, really nice. We see that the Drill actually was not Scarf, so maybe it was Sash when it came in earlier. But regardless, it's not going to live that +2 Drain Punch. We're going to be able to knock it out. Out comes Raikou, which obviously also goes down to a +2 knockoff. And then T-Tar is going to come out and, suffer the same fate. So it does suck. I think the Thunder Wave Mist took out any chance. But as long as I didn't get fully paired on that turn, I really don't think that mattered. So we're able to bounce back, win this next game 4-0, which is great after kind of getting smashed week 1. Even if the score wasn't that bad, we kind of got bullied a little bit in that week 1 game. So it's nice to kind of bounce back. We'll be right back with week 3 though. Alright, week 3 when we're going up against Brandon or Moose, I don't know exactly what he goes by, because in a lot of servers, I don't know. Regardless, he has a pretty cool team. He's rocking with the Deoxys Speed, Buzzwole, Metagross, Donphan, Azumarill, and Terrible Mega Manectric. While we have, obviously, a extra belt Cinderace, which is kind of a theme, I guess, at this point. I believe we're Power Ball, Gong Shot, U-Turn, Sucker Punch on this set, I want to say. Then we have Dual Steps, Calm Mind, Latias, which is a great win con if we could shift down the Metagross especially, but also the Azumarill. We have a Calm Mind taunting Fini with Taunt, Draining Kiss, Scald, and it's either Scald or Surf, and Calm Mind, obviously. We have a Spiking Ferrothorn with Knockoff, Power Whip, Spikes, and Leech Seed. We have a Choice Specs Toxtricity, which has -2 switch-ins on this team. And then we have an Assault Vest Mamoswine, I believe it is this week, just to take on things like Manectric a little bit better throughout the course of the game, and also obviously taking one Deoxys hit. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I believe I end up leading off with Cinderace right here. I get the pretty free pivot out into my Mamoswine. Now obviously I do get Intimidated here, but honestly that's not the biggest deal in the world. I'd rather have Intimidate than Oblivious in this matchup, obviously, because I don't want to be intimidated by that, the Manectric, Flamethrower by the Manectric. I'm going to knock off this Buzzwole's Choice Scarf right here and get a bunch of damage off on it as we end up going into our Feeny. I'm going to make a double out into Cinderace after he ends up making a good play and poison jabbing me, but he makes the play, a hard aggressive play into the Manectric. I expected a potential Metagross to come in on that play, but you know, not the biggest deal in the world, as I again do have a pretty good stopgap to this thing in my Mamoswine. Buzzwole is going to come out next as I do make that double into Cinderace this time, so I can click Pyro Ball, get a big chunk off on something as the Donphan ends up coming in. We see that's not leftovers, which is definitely good to know, as Stealth Rock are going to go up, but if his Stealth Rock go up, then I'm getting up my Spikes. And I'm a Spiker that can pretty freely beat that Donphan, especially because I'm pretty physically defensive, and he seemed to be pretty physically defensive himself, so he's not going to be like offensive Fire Fang or anything like that. It was great. The Buzzwole's going to go for a close combat. I'm just going to go for a Roost right here on my Latios, just to get back up to full, so I can come in again later. Hammer Arm's going to come out from the Metagross, so good prediction by Brandon right there. But I am out of range of another one, and I believe I do just end up spiking up right here, or Leech Seeding up, sorry, just to get a little bit more healthy and stuff like that throughout the course of the game. We're up at 74, and I feel comfortable getting up another Spike right here, which should be our second layer right here. I wanted to Spike up there in case he wanted to try and like spin them away for some reason. It, you know, sack off the Donphan, but it doesn't end up doing so. I go into Feeny on the close combat right here, and I feel pretty comfortable just going for a Draining Kiss, especially with these spikes up. Even if the Manectric or the Metagross wants to come in, that's phenomenal chip for my endgame. So I'm definitely going to take that, as I do end up Draining Kiss up, getting back most of the health that I took from that close combat, in all honesty, as a Flamethrower is going to come out from that Manectric, but due to Thick Fat and our Assault Vest, we take 27 from it, and be able to throw off a free Ice Crash. It's not quite to a KO range for the Buzzwole, so I am going to be forced out once again, as a Drain Punch ends up coming out, but thankfully we do live that, and we can once again just click Draining Kiss, because we're going to chip down anything that wants to come in. The Manectric is really wearing itself down to Spike, plus having to take these Feeny hits. It can't do what it just did again, which is great. I end up going into Latias right here, because I don't think he's going to Volt Switch and just essentially sack this thing off right here, because if I go hard Mamoswine, it's a dead Pokemon. So I figured he might try and Flamethrower, at least get a little bit of value out of it. But he ends up going for the Volt Switch right here, which is unfortunate, but Latias is going to only take, what, 15%, so not too bad. And it forces in that Metagross, which is going to have to take those Spikes again, which is, again, phenomenal. I'm going to go hard Toxtricity right here, take a good chunk from Meteor Mash despite being resisted, and throw off an Overdrive. He is Assault Vest, so unfortunately, even though we don't knock him out, we're able to bring him down very low, and really put ourselves in a good position for our Latias in this endgame. I'm able to go into Cinderace right here, revenge this Mamoswine. Out comes the Manectric. I kind of do reveal Sucker Punch right here, and part of me wishes I didn't, because I had a pretty free Mamoswine right there, and if I don't reveal Sucker, it makes endgame mind games a lot easier for me to deal with. So I don't think that was the best decision by me in the long run, but in hindsight, like, you don't think of that thing's like right away. I don't know. It's interesting. Out comes the Azumarill right here. I believe it goes for a knockoff right here. I believe that tells me that it's Choice Band Azumarill. I don't know for sure. But I remember I did take a chunk from there, obviously. I'm just going to go for a Power Whip as he ends up sacking off the Donphan, which makes sense. Doesn't really have too much value at this point, and it's going to get some Rocky Helmet chip on me in the meantime as well. Next up, I'm going to go right back out into Feeny, and despite taking these rocks and taking these close combats and things like that, I'm still taking these, I'm still just barely able to hang on with my Feeny, and I'm able to Draining Kiss, KO this Buzzwole, and, you know, being still a pretty decent spot for this endgame. Out comes Diasca Speed, though, and this thing is definitely a big issue. It goes for a Psychic, reveals to be Life Orb, which is terrifying for me to deal with right here. I am going to go into Cinderace. I go for a Sucker Punch here. Now, if I didn't reveal Sucker Punch before, maybe there's more mind games. However, obviously, I'm slower anyway, so I kind of, like, tip off that that's what I am anyways, unless I'm Scarf. So, definitely unfortunate, as he is going to spike up and call me going for that Sucker Punch. And his next turn, I try and make a play, and I don't think I need to make this play this early on. I should have just Sucker Punched again, at least a few more times, but I'm going to lose this 50-50 and lose my Cinderace, which puts me in a pretty terrible position. I will not lie to you. Puts me in a really awful position. My Cinderace is going to go down. I can't really go Ferrothorn, as it's my only way of not just, like, raw losing to Azumarill, or it's my best way of not raw losing to Azumarill, at least right now. So I have to keep that thing around. I end up going into Mammothorn right here just to get some Ice Shard chip off, put this thing in range closer and closer of dying to its own Life Orb, as it is going to take a big Psychic and go down right there. But it's at 29, which is great. And then Latias is going to be able to come out right here. I believe I just go for a Recover, trying to outlast this thing as long as humanly possible, as I am going to get Leftovers back, and it looks like I might be able to do so right here, which is definitely great. As the Azumarill is going to come out next. It's going to take the spikes. I am going to be forced to go hard Ferrothorn and chip this thing down with my Rough Skin, and hope that this just puts it in range of Psychic. I believe this was a good roll to kill it if it had no HP investment. However, you're going to see he does have some investment. He only does 40. He's at 3%. He hits the Play Rough, and we're going to lose this game 2-0. I do feel very frustrated in this game. Losing that 50-50 put me in such a bad position from what I was up 5-2. With just these 2 mons left. And again, you see how close it was in the end game. So it's not like, you know, we got absolutely smashed. It's just very frustrating to lose a game like that. Especially because I believe this starts us off on the season at a 1-2 record. Which is definitely not great. I believe we lost week 1, won week 2, lost week 3. So definitely not the best way to start off the season. We're going to really have to bounce back and see what we can do. But that was definitely a demoralizing one. I will not lie to you. But we'll jump into the next game right now. Alrighty, week 4 rolls around. We really need this win. I believe we're 1-2 at this point. We're playing up against Almighty Gohan. And he's rocking around with a really, really scary team in the Latios, Skarmory, Muckalola, the Reuniclus, Thwackey, and Seismitoad. And I will keep it a buck with you guys. I looked at this team and I said, holy shit, I didn't build for Thwackey. I lose to Thwackey. I have no counterplay to an SD Thwackey. Bandit is also very, very scary. The fact that I don't have Prepper Thwackey is really sad, and a big issue that I see in myself when it comes to draft, in the sense that I really do overlook low-tier threats a lot throughout my whole draft career. The years and years I've been playing this format, I really do overlook some of those low-tier sleeper, you know, like sweeping sets. I've been demolished by really, really funny mons that should not ever win games, and Thwackey is hopefully not going to do the same to me in this game, but it's looking pretty tough. You look at my team, you look at +2 glide. It's pretty easy for him to deal with that, especially with the team that I brought. So on this team, I believe I'm a Choice Band Mammothorn. I believe I'm just 4 attacks, knockoff, dual stabs, Ice Shard. I believe I'm an Expert Belt, Cinderace, just 4 attacks again. I believe I had High Jump Kick or Low Kick for something. I think he might have like a Blissey on his draft. I don't know. And I know I'm U-Turn, Pyro. And then I want to say, let's see, not because I'm gonna look, because it's gonna drive me insane if I don't look. Powerball, U-Turn, Gunk Shot, High Jump Kick. I believe there's a Clef on this draft as well. Then I'm like a Stallbreaker Feeny, the Taunt, Nature's Madness, Dual Stabs. AV Scrafty with Power Up Punch, so that I can kind of bully and deal with a Reuniclus decently enough. Then we have a Wish, Facade, Power Up Punch, Crunch, Mega Kang. Those two in conjunction were kind of my ways of dealing with Spectrier, because that thing's really, really annoying. Obviously, I believe I'm also Shed Skin Scrafty because of that. And then I'm a Life Orb 3 attacks Roost to Latias, which does decently outside of the Muck, but if I can shoot on the Muck, which I can do with Latias and no Pursuit obviously existing, then I'll be in a pretty good position. So let's go ahead and start off the game. He's going to lead Skarmory, as I do end up leading Latias. I just go for a Thunderbolt right here. I'm not going to overplay or anything like that, as the free Muck is free. I'm going to take a little bit of Life Orb chip, but not the biggest deal in the world, as you do just go hard Kang. Might have been kind of a tough play in hindsight, because I do end up getting poisoned, which is to be expected from, you know, Poison Jab. But I am able to get up a Wish right here. The Poison's going to kind of make that Pokemon useless, though, as I do get that free switch into Cinderace. And from here, I am going to throw off a pretty free Pyro Ball, as I actually end up getting a crit burn on the Seismitoad, which is great because it just is going to slowly chip it in the range of my Cinderace, you know, giving my Cinderace a great position for this endgame. So right here, I'm going to U-turn out, see that it's Rocky Helmet, pivot out into my King just to sack it off as he reveals Endeavor, which is definitely very, very interesting, as I am going to be able to Facade right here. I'm going to go down, but I at least break the Skarmory Sturdy on my way down, and I was going to die anyway, so like, not the biggest deal in the world, in all honesty. I'm going to go Cinderace right here, just throw off a Pyro Ball. It is pretty darn free, because after the burn, the Seismitoad is going to go down. I don't have to really worry about it too much. And then out comes Reuniclus, which I can just U-turn on, as it does show to be weakness policy, which is pretty darn scary. I do go Scrafty, however, as this thing ends up recovering up. And this next turn, I'm going to go for a knockoff just to try and chip it down if it wants to KO me with Focus Blast, but it shows to go for a Shadow Ball, which tells me that it might not have Focus Blast, to be completely honest. So I'm just going to Power Up Punch here just in case this thing is just mono psychic plus shadow ball, and be able to throw off a big knockoff on this incoming Skarmory, and then I believe throw off a Drain Punch this next turn to get a little bit of health back and kind of deal with it in that way. So we are going to get Whirlwinded out into our Mamoswine. However, this is fine because I feel pretty comfortable and just going for an Ice-Cold Crash and knocking this thing out. Out comes Latios. I believe I pivoted into Feeny. Part of me wishes I just stayed in the Crash because you're going to see this is actually a dual screens Lottie, and this is when I start saying, oh shit, oh no, no, no. Maybe I should have taunted here because then I wouldn't have been mementoed, but the Latios is going to go down, and you'd think I'm in an okay position right here, but this is the position I was talking about with Thwackey. Now if it gets in, and it gets up a free Swords Dance, because it does, because I'm not faster, even though I tried my best to taunt it, we're in a terrible spot. It's right here. He's going to go for a Glide. He's going to do 40% to my Latias. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it realistically could have 1v1 my Latias under screens pretty easy anyways. So not the biggest deal. I have to go back down to Feeny. And once again, just reset the terrain so that this thing can't just like sit in front of my entire, out-prioritize my entire team. Go into my Cinderace, which is probably my best win con at this point, but because of the screen, I don't knock it out. It's going to be able to Drain Punch up, get back up to 40. Reflect will go away, but at this point, it's kind of looking like an L to this, to the Swacky right here. I do go for a Banded Ice Shard right here with my Mamoswine. I pivot out into Scrafty, and this game is still looking decently possible right here, right? Because in theory, I should be able to 1v1 this Muck pretty easy. I believe I am Shed Skin on the set, so even if it gets Poison Touches, I can potentially, you know, shake that off. I can Power Up Punch and then try and Drain Punch / knock off through the rest of this team. However, this Muck ends up having Explosion, and you're going to see this is going to seal the game. Now, obviously, if I would have scouted for this, maybe gone to Mamoswine, I would have been in a better spot, but I just didn't really think of it in hindsight, so unfortunately, we're going to go down because I am going to be able to go into Mamoswine. Grassclade's going to out-prioritize me because I'm not faster than the Thwackey that he had. And we're going to lose to Thwackey, which was ridiculously embarrassing, especially because this puts us at 1-3. And I know you're thinking, why in the world are you uploading this run? You are 1-3, playing pretty terrible. And I agree. And that's part of the reason why I'm uploading this video. Because I do start off pretty terrible, but again, as I said in the Trick House video, I wouldn't upload a movie if I did terrible the whole season. Just doesn't make any sense. Why upload you playing like garbage for 8 weeks? So we do end up turning it around a little bit, and I kind of wanted to document that as well, kind of show you guys how these upcoming games go and things like that. So even if you start off terrible like this, even if you get swept by Thwackey and you start off 1-3 in a league, you can still kind of turn things around and do something with it. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into week 5, where I like to see the season officially starts. This is all preseason warm-up stuff, you know? Alrighty, so week 5 rolls around, and I know you guys saw me just get bullied by a Thwackey, and the week after we got to play a Rillaboom, which is really, really funny. We're playing against T-Riches, really, really cool dude. I love T-Riches. But he has a Mega Blastoise without Shell Smash, obviously, a Jellicent, Klefki, Nidoqueen, Rillaboom, and Thundurus Incarnate. Team we have a physically defensive Rocky Helmet, Ferrothorn to kind of deal with that, Rillaboom to an extent. We have a Charcoal, Cinderace with Pyro Ball, U-Turn, Assurance, and Flare Blitz. We have Flare Blitz just in case we end up running out of Pyro Ball throughout the course of the game, but Fire moves are extremely free against this team in my personal opinion. I don't think I'm going to be clutching much else besides that and U-Turn. I do have Assurance for a weakened Jellicent, or in case it comes in and takes rocks. It actually takes a ridiculous amount from Assurance, which I will definitely take. We have a Life Orb 3 attacks Mamoswine with high horsepower instead of Earthquake instead, which is obviously great. It honestly just claims the KO every time it comes in, which is really, really clutch. We have another Dual Dance Scrafty, bulk up Stabs, just Drain Punch knockoff, which is great. Another Stall Breaking Feeny with Stabs, Nature's Madness Taunt. And then we have a Choice Scarf Toxtricity, which is also a great endgame win con. If we get rid of the Jellicent, we can lock into Overdrive. If we get rid of Nidoqueen, if we get rid of the Jellicent, we can lock into Boom Burst. I mean, if we get rid of the Nidoqueen, we can lock into Overdrive pretty freely. So, great wall breaker in this game for sure. Let's go ahead and jump into it. I believe I do just end up leading off with Mamoswine, as I have pivots into things that beat Mamoswine right now. And if I get a good lead, I get 55% off on that Mega Blastoise, which is very, very clutch. I'm going to be able to go out into Feeny this next turn, as I believe the Blastoise is going to go for an Aura Sphere. I'll take that and lead is about 18. Puts me in a pretty solid position. I believe I just go for a Nature's Madness this turn, because I know a Moonblast won't knock it out, so I might as well Nature's Madness on like a potential Jellicent coming in. I go for a Taunt here, as he does make a good pivot out into the what do you call it, into the Rillaboom, not having to risk a Scald because I'm never clicking that. Putting himself in a pretty solid position. As Knockoff is going to come out, it's going to knock off my Rocky Helmet. But honest to God, that's fine because I can just spike up here pretty freely. And the Rillaboom still does take that chip. And if I want to chip things on there, switch in. Out comes the Blastoise. And to punish the spin, I actually end up staying in Power Whipping, as he does end up going for an Aura Sphere, which definitely surprised me because I figured that he might want to go for that spin. Or, you know, potentially a move to punish the Feeny like a Terrain Pulse. But not the biggest deal in the world as we knock out the Blastoise. Out comes Klefki. And I try to Leech Seed up, but in hindsight, not the smartest thing, I guess, because why would a Klefki ever come in? Maybe, I guess it could come in and set up a bunch of spikes on me, so I kind of want to at least do that. But I see the sub, and I go, sub Calm Mind. I go hard Toxtricity, because I know that Overdrive will be able to bully this thing down, at least chip it down in range, as I go for an Overdrive, as I'm kind of forced to on the Nidoqueen coming in, as it goes for Rocks, and make an aggressive switch into Mamoswine, because this theoretically should give me a pretty solid position, as I do get up my Stealth Rock, which is going to be great. The Rock plus the Spike is going to be great in chipping down his team. I'm going to go hard Ferrothorn here, essentially trying to sack it off, but he ends up going for a Grassy Glide, and because of the terrain, I put myself out of range in the next one, which is definitely really, really solid. I believe I do just go for a Gyro Ball right here, chip down this Klefki on the switch in, do about 23%, and in this scenario, it won't be able to, like, Calm Mind and deal with me that way, since I did get that initial, Gyro Ball off. As I go for another one, as he makes it double out into Nidoqueen, which is definitely very, very nice chip. I will definitely take. Superpower is going to come off. It's going to knock out my Ferrothorn, which is unfortunate, but it's at 25%, or 31, I guess, after the thing. And it's a very free Mamoswine. I can just go for an Ice Shard because it doesn't miss like the other moves. I can knock out the Nidoqueen. I didn't think he'd make another pivot. He doesn't really have good switching at this point anyways. And we're able to knock it out right there, which is great. Next up comes out the Rillaboom. I like to sack off my Feeny as I don't see it as necessary in this matchup at all. He is going to go for a Grassy Glide, but because I reset the terrain, I can pretty freely go into my Cinderace. We're going to see the Klefki come out and get sacked off, which is really, really clutch. That thing was definitely very, very annoying for me to potentially deal with. It goes down right here, and out comes the Jealousy next, but because of the spikes and the rocks and stuff like that, I'm able to knock it out very, very easily with an Assurance, and bring it down very low. Now, the only unfortunate thing about this is the fact that now I am definitely in range of a Grassy Glide because I'm not a Fire type anymore. And we're going to go down right there. But not the biggest deal in the world because I am going to be able to go into Toxtricity and kind of put T-Riches in a checkmate position because I can just lock into Boom Burst and kill everything. I do kill Thundurus after Rocks, and again, remember, there are new boots, so I don't have to worry about, you know, boots going up or there being boots. Plus, I also have Mamoswine in the back, so there really isn't a position in which I lose that endgame. So I'm going to be able to Boom Burst, knock out the Thundurus, and be able to take home a 3-0 dub, which is great because obviously we didn't have a great start to the season right before this. So now we're at 2-3. Things are definitely a little bit more doable, but at this point in the season, my mindset is just play the next game, win the next game, and we'll deal with the game after that, you know. Well, let's go one game at a time, basically, and we're able to win this one, and we can move on to the next one now. All right, week 6, and we go up against Slade. You can see the team he has. He has a Terrakion, Tapu Lele, Mega Scizor, the most powerful core of all time, Torn T, Rotom, Heat, and a Dracovish. The team we're rocking out with a Choice Band Cinderace. We're rocking out with a, I believe, am I Taunt or am I Iron Defense? I know I'm Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Water move, like Scald. I'm Calm Mind 3 attack, pretty physically defensive Feeny. I have Ice Beam as well. And then we're rocking out with a Fire Punch, Wish, Protect, Facade, Mega Kangaskhan, rocking out with a rocking Reggie Rock, a Life Orb, 3 attacks, Roost, Latias, and then a Choice Scarf, Toxtricity. Obviously, Feeny does really well this matchup if we can just position it well enough, which is going to be the plan to this. Let's go ahead and jump in. I lead off with my Toxtricity as he leads off with his Lele. I am going to scout, obviously, for it being Scarf and go into my Latias, and if it is Scarf, it's obviously going to pivot out here. And if it's not, then it's going to click Moonblast. So I feel pretty free pivoting into Toxtricity right here. It catches the Torn on the double as well, which is great. So I can just throw off a big, big Volt Switch, pivot out into my Feeny, and start wreaking a little bit of havoc. Because right here, I do end up going for a Calm Mind as the Trackant ends up getting rocks in my face, which is going to be big because this thing just doesn't end up, you know, getting any damage off on me, as the Rotom's gonna have to do so, as it gets off a Thunderbolt for about 40-ish%, but I'm able to knock it out with a +1 Scald after the Draining Kiss chip, and still be relatively healthy to where I can live this next hit from the Terrakion, get off a big Draining Kiss, and be in a solid spot to where I can at least take this thing out 1v1, as he actually ends up missing the Stone Edge as I get more health back with my leftovers, and I'm at 72 still. Out comes the Mega Scizor right here. I do feel comfortable scalding because no terrain means I can burn, as I actually end up getting a crit burn as he Swords Dances. I'm going to see him forfeit right here. That's definitely unfortunate. I feel it. that was pretty shitty for him. I think he kind of played bad around the Feeny to keep it a $150. But Feeny obviously also got very, very lucky there. I was just able to put myself in a position to, you know, kind of win the game after getting a little bit fortunate there. Definitely with the edge miss, as well as that crit burn. More so just the burn in general. I don't even think the crit mattered that much. It was just burning the thing. Made it kind of impossible for him to win or beat this Feeny without losing everything on his team first and having one Pokemon left. So it is definitely very, very unfortunate for our opponent. But, you know, we'll take it. Again, it's about as good of a win as we can take. A 6-0 win after, again, starting off 1-3. We're back at 3-3 with some great differential, to be honest, after this win. Getting that +6 is great. Our other win was +4, or like our first win of the season was a +4 win. I believe we won like 3-0 or 2-0 against Cheers. I already forgot, even though I just watched the replay. So despite us having a pretty bad record and just barely being 500, our actual like differential, phenomenal. And it was great to see Feeny pop off in a game right here. So we'll take it. We'll take it. I'll be right back with week 7. All right, week 7, we go up against my good pal, Robert Panda. You can see the team that he has. He has an Aegislash, Chestnut, Mega Pidgeot, Audino, Crocodile, and a Rotom Wash. Well, the team we're rocking out with is an Assault Vest, Reggie Rock, a Choice Band Cinderace, a Choice Scarf, Toxtricity, I believe a Life Orb mixed Mammoth with Earth, with Freeze Dry, not Earth Power, don't worry. A Facade, Earthquake, Wish, and Toxic Kangaskhan, and then we're actually double dance Feeny once again, just a setup set. But instead of 3 attacks, I believe we're Iron Defense, Scald, Draining Kiss, and Calm Mind. Does really, really well in this matchup if we can position it well. Just kind of have to chip down the Audino first, which is definitely going to encore me. And yeah. Excuse me. Ooh. I'm going to sneeze again. I'm sorry. Goodness. Right when I start recording this battle, too, I didn't sneeze at all in the prelude up to it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it, take it off hyper fast. You're going to see him lead off with the Rotom Wash. I'm going to lead off with my Cinderace. I feel pretty comfortable in U-turning, getting off a big chunk. You see that's a Brocky helmet right here, and it's pretty physically defensive as it does 35. But I am going to make the pivot out into Kangaskhan, taking up that Volt Switch and chewing it up, as the Kang is going to go for Toxic on this Chestnut coming in, as I feel pretty comfortable it's going to spike up, and getting a Toxic off on this thing is really, really big, and chipping it down for the rest of my team. And right here, I do feel comfortable going into Toxtricity and just throwing off, I believe, a Boom Burst. Yeah, I throw off a big, big Boom Burst. Do a chunk to that Audino, to be completely honest. And then I'm going to make the pivot out into Kangaskhan, just because I know this thing can't really threaten me all too much. So I am going to be able to Wish up right here. As the Aegislash comes in, I'm going to get hard out into Reggie Rock because I know I take any physical hit. I know I take any special hit, which is obviously very, very nice as well. But he actually ends up making a double on the Rotom, and I do feel comfortable just going for a Stone Edge, because if I get chip on this thing, it really makes things like Cinderace so much better in the end game. You know, for Hydro Pump, you see it only does 36, which is great, but this next turn he is going to go for a Will-O-Wisp, and I didn't think he might, I thought he might not have it in this matchup particularly, just because of the terrain, plus a lot of my physical threats not, I don't know, like things like Cinderace, which is supposed to be checking, having it, but I'm going to make an aggressive play to Mamoswine. I know there's things like Max Fizz Death, so I know I outspeed it, and because I get in on the Volt Switch, I'm able to Freeze Dry and knock out the Rotom Wash, which is great. Next up comes Crocodile, and not wanting to sack off my Mamoswine, I'm going to go hard Reggie Rock and just sack it off to a close combat. At this point, it's kind of served its purpose. I kind of have to use Toxtricity to check that Mega Pidgeot. Offensively now, that plus Mamoswine Ice Shard, which is fine, but I'm going to be able to go into Feeny right here. I'm just going to go for a Calm Mind as this Crocodile is going to be forced out, and he goes into Aegislash. I'm going to go for a second Calm Mind as this comes out, and I know for a fact this thing is going to encore me, so I can just throw off a Scald to get a big, big crit, forcing this thing to Wish pretty much immediately, as I can kind of just spam Scald right now, because even if I am encored into this, nothing really wants to take this +2 Scald regardless, so I can kind of just keep spamming Scald right here. I believe I'm going to be locked into Encore for just one more turn right here, as we do 39 with this Scald right here, and knowing that this is most likely a roll that Robert Panda doesn't want to take, I'm going to take this opportunity to actually Calm Mind again and get up to +3, so that crit really actually helping us out earlier, forcing him into more Wish turns than he typically would want to be. And now we're going to do 45 with this next Scald, which is absolutely amazing. I get to go for another one, again, just absolutely whittling him down. We see a Wish go off, and we finally burn this thing too now that the terrain is gone, so we're going to be able to beat this thing down even easier. We definitely beat this thing 1v1, and we're putting ourselves in a very solid position to win this game with Feeny right here. So I am just going to be able to Scald right here. And eventually, my Encore is just going to end. He ends up going for a knockoff just to knock off my leftovers, which is, again, completely fine with me. and then we're just going to go for a Draining Kiss as our Encore ends. We're going to knock out this Audino, and we're going to be at full at +3, which is amazing. So right here, Aegislash comes out. I just go for a Scald, as I don't know this thing's set, and I know that no crit or anything like that will ever knock me out as well. As we see, it does go for a Shadow Claw. This next turn, I just go for a Scald again, because I figured he might not want to King Shield to, like, punish me for going for like a setup move or something like that, but honestly it makes sense. It's probably a better play just a King Shield. This next turn though, I am going to Iron Defense, as I know I don't kill him anyways, as he does end up Shadow Clawing just for 15%, which is also great. And this next turn I am just going to go for a Scald. I believe I just spam Scald these next few moves, just because it's in my best interest to do so. And at this point, at +2/+2, it's not like I really need to boost anymore. Or at +2, +3/+3, which is a lot. But this next turn, I am just going to go for a Draining Kiss just to get a little bit of health back, as I know it'll knock it out. And if he King Shields, whatever, I'll Scald the next turn, and I'll keep getting my leftovers back. Next comes Pidgeot, and I guess that's fair. His best win con at this point is kind of confusing Feeny, or critting it with, you know, something like the Pidgeot, but he is not going to get the crit. He's not going to get the confusion. We're going to be able to Draining Kiss it twice, knock it out, and then Robert's going to forfeit, just because he knows at this point there's not really an out to him winning the game. So it was definitely unfortunate the crit on Odd, though I still think I could have positioned myself in endgame victory pretty easy. It just kind of sped up the inevitable, in my opinion. I don't know. I did definitely love to see Feeny put into work 2 weeks in a row, and obviously get me great differential in both games, +6 and +5, plus a +4 one earlier and a +3. Like, our differential is great for the position we're at and the record that we have. I believe we're 4-3 in this one. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into week 8. Yeah, week 8. All right, week 7, we go up against my good pal Robert Panda. You can see the team that he has. He has an Aegislash, Chestnut, Mega Pidgeot, Audino, Crocodile, and a Rotom Wash. Well, the team we're rocking out with is an Assault Vest, Reggie Rock, a Choice Band Cinderace, a Choice Scarf, Toxtricity, I believe a Life Orb mixed Mammoth with Earth, with Freeze Dry, not Earth Power, don't worry. A Facade, Earthquake, Wish, and Toxic Kangaskhan, and then we're actually double Dance Feeny once again, just a setup set. But instead of 3 attacks, I believe we're Iron Defense, Scald, Draining Kiss, and Calm Mind. Does really, really well in this matchup if we can position it well. Just kind of have to chip down the Audino first, which is definitely going to Encore me. And yeah. Excuse me. Ooh. I'm going to sneeze again. I'm sorry. Goodness. Right when I start recording this battle, too, I didn't sneeze at all in the prelude up to it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it, take it off hyper fast. You're going to see him lead off with the Rotom Wash. I'm going to lead off with my Cinderace. I feel pretty comfortable in U-turning, getting off a big chunk. You see that's a Brocky helmet right here, and it's pretty physically defensive as it does 35. But I am going to make the pivot out into Kangaskhan, taking up that Volt Switch and chewing it up, as the Kang is going to go for Toxic on this Chestnut coming in, as I feel pretty comfortable it's going to spike up, and getting a Toxic off on this thing is really, really big, and chipping it down for the rest of my team. And right here, I do feel comfortable going into Toxtricity and just throwing off, I believe, a Boom Burst. Yeah, I throw off a big, big Boom Burst. Do a chunk to that Audino, to be completely honest. And then I'm going to make the pivot out into Kangaskhan, just because I know this thing can't really threaten me all too much. So I am going to be able to Wish up right here. As the Aegislash comes in, I'm going to get hard out into Reggie Rock, because I know I take any physical hit, I know I take any special hit, which is obviously very, very nice as well. But he actually ends up making a double on the Rotom, and I do feel comfortable just going for a Stone Edge, because if I get chip on this thing, it really makes things like Cinderace so much better in the end game. You know, for Hydro Pump, you see it only does 36, which is great, but this next turn he is going to go for a Will-O-Wisp, and I didn't think he might, I thought he might not have it in this matchup particularly, just because of the terrain, plus a lot of my physical threats not, I don't know, like things like Cinderace, which is supposed to be checking, having it, but I'm gonna make an aggressive play to Mamoswine. I know there's things like Max Fizz Death, so I know I outspeed it, and because I get in on the Volt Switch, I'm able to Freeze Dry and knock out the Rotom Wash, which is great. Next up comes Crocodile, and not wanting to sack off my Mamoswine, I'm gonna go hard Reggie Rock and just sack it off to a close combat. At this point, it's kind of served its purpose. I kind of have to use Toxtricity to check that Mega Pidgeot offensively now, that plus Mamoswine Ice Shard. Which is fine, but I'm going to be able to go into Feeny right here. I'm just going to go for a Calm Mind, as this Crocodile is going to be forced out, and he goes into Aegislash. I'm going to go for a second Calm Mind as this comes out, and I know for a fact this thing is going to Encore me, so I can just throw off a Scald to get a big, big crit, forcing this thing to Wish pretty much immediately, as I can kind of just spam Scald right now, because even if I am Encored into this, nothing really wants to take this +2 Scald regardless, so I can kind of just keep spamming Scald right here. I believe I'm going to be locked into Encore for just one more turn right here as we do 39 with this Scald right here, and knowing that this is most likely a roll that Rob Panda doesn't want to take, I'm going to take this opportunity to actually Calm Mind again and get up to +3, so that crit really actually helping us out earlier, forcing him into more wish turns than he typically would want to be. And now we're going to do 45 with this next Scald, which is absolutely amazing. I get to go for another one, again, just absolutely whittling him down. We see a wish go off, and we finally burn this thing too now that the terrain is gone, so we're going to be able to beat this thing down even easier. We definitely beat this thing 1v1, and we're putting ourselves in a very solid position to win this game with Feeney right here. So I am just going to be able to Scald right here, and eventually my Encore is just going to end. He ends up going for a knockoff just to knock off my leftovers, which is again completely fine with me. And then we're just going to go for a Draining Kiss as our Encore ends. We're going to knock out this Audino, and we're going to be at full at +3, which is amazing. So right here, Aegislash comes out. I just go for a Scald, as I don't know this thing's set, and I know that no crit or anything like that will ever knock me out as well. As we see, it does go for a Shadow Claw. This next turn, I just go for a Scald again, because I figured he might not want to King Shield to like punish me for going for like a setup move or something like that, but honestly it makes sense. It's probably a better play just to King Shield. This next turn though, I am going to Iron Defense, as I know I don't kill him anyways, as he does end up Shadow Clawing just for 15%, which is also great. And this next turn I am just going to go for a Scald. I believe I just spam Scald these next few moves, just because it's in my best interest to do so. And at this point, at +2/+2, it's not like I really need to boost anymore. Or at +2, +3/+3, which is a lot. But this next turn, I am just going to go for a Draining Kiss just to get a little bit of health back, as I know it'll knock it out. And if he King Shields, whatever, I'll Scald the next turn, and I'll keep getting my leftovers back. Next comes Pidgeot, and I guess that's fair. His best win con at this point is kind of confusing Feeney, or critting it with, you know, something like the Pidgeot, but he is not going to get the crit. He's not going to get the confusion. We're going to be able to Draining Kiss it twice, knock it out, and then Robert's going to forfeit just because he knows at this point there's not really an out to him winning the game. So it was definitely unfortunate the crit on Odd, though I still think I could have positioned myself in endgame victory pretty easy. It just kind of sped up the inevitable, in my opinion. I don't know. I did definitely love to see Feeney put into work 2 weeks in a row, and obviously get me great differential in both games, +6 and +5, plus a +4 win earlier and a +3. Like our differential is great for the position we're at and the record that we have. I believe we're 4-3 in this one. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into week 8. Yeah, week 8. Alrighty, week 8 rolls along, and I'll keep it bulk with you guys. We are pretty much clinched at this point, even despite just a 4-3 record, just because there was a lot of people with that record, and we had by far the best differential out of any of them. So I wasn't too worried about making playoffs at this point, just because our last 2 games kind of sealed it for us with the differential. So I actually had my buddy Ant build this team for me against Granky, because I knew Granky was making playoffs as well. I knew he was a very likely opponent that we would have to face going forward as well. So I didn't want to build my best team, and because I'm actually really bad at building for playoff rematches, so I want to have someone else build for me, which I typically actually hate as well. And then, you know, be able to, you know, if I play him in a potential playoff rematch, kind of build a team on my own off the top of my head. So we ended up having Ant build for us. It's a pretty physically defensive Reggie Rock. Then we have a Life Orb, Latias. We have a bulk up Salic Berry Cinderace, which is pretty funny and can actually definitely win if we position it correctly. Then I believe we Life Orb Memo? Rindo Berry Memo for the Decidueye, I assume. I don't remember, to be completely honest. We have a Taunt Calm Mind Tapu Fini, and then I believe we have a Choice Scarf Foxtricity. Let's go ahead and jump into it, though. Again, we're not going to go super in depth on this one, as I didn't even really build a team. I'm going to lead off with Cinderace to try and deter that Vikavolt lead, and I go for a bulk up turn 1, assuming he might want to pip it out, but he actually ends up staying in, just getting up webs, and I don't have removal on this team that Ant built me. So I just go for a Pyro Ball. You're going to see we don't actually even kill it, because it ends up being Occaberry, so maybe bulking up again was probably my better play. Regardless, Arrow's going to come out right here, and maybe if I bulk up again, I actually live this hit, but I don't, unfortunately. We're going to go down, so the bulk up was for nothing. I'm going to be able to get into Reggie Rock, though, pretty darn freely, as I believe I get up my rocks right here, as he makes a hard Vikavolt play, and I don't go for a Stone Edge, because I'm scared I won't knock it out, and I take a big energy wall of face for Ice Punching, and that's just an absolute punish for a terrible play, so not the best. We're going to be able to 2-hit KO it with another Ice Punch right there, which is definitely pretty funny. But Garchomp's going to come out this next turn. I make the aggressive pivot into Latias, expecting an Earthquake to come out. Don't think he'll Dragon Move just because Reggie Rock's fat, and he'll Chew, and I'll Ice Punch and do a lot of damage. But I'm going to go for a Thunderbolt here, predicting the Celesteal to come in. Unfortunately, it does not come in. This next turn, I end up going for a Draco, only doing 58 because it's like a very Spadef Decidueye. And then it goes for a Spirit Shackle, trapping me in, and there's not much I can do here. I can just spam Draco, hope I get a crit and kill this thing. Unfortunately, it's not going to go down like that. Down we go, basically. And yeah, we're going to go for one last little Draco right here, as I believe he roosts one more time. Yep, that's all it takes. And down goes Latias, unfortunately. Now I go into Mamoswine next because I am Rindo and I know I live any one hit. And it's really my only play at this point, as I do go for an Ice Cold Crash. I get a crit on the Conkeldurr, and I know that I can live from this thing because it is not Guts or anything like that, but it shows to be Life Orb. I am going to be able to knock it out with an Earthquake right there, though. And then out comes Celesteela, which I do believe I have to pivot out on, just because I'd like to keep that Ice Shard around for everything else in the back, because Ice Shard actually can definitely win this game against these last three outside of Celesteela. So I do go into Toxtricity. I am Scarf, so I still will outspeed this thing. Go for an Overdrive. Unfortunately, miss out on that Chomp, as EQ is going to come out from the Scar Chomp. It's going to do a fair bit to Reggie Rock right here, as I do end up going for an Ice Punch as he Swords Dances in my face, which was a little bit greedy, but not the biggest deal in the world, as we do end up knocking it out, which is great. Or as it doesn't end up knocking me out, but we do end up going into our Mamoswine and knocking it out, which is, again, very, very nice. So down goes the Garchomp, but out comes Celesteela, and I find out that this thing is auto, and that's the game. There is absolutely no counterplay I have at this point to auto Selly. It just Earthquakes and Heavy Slams to the last three remaining members of my team. Now, if I could have gotten rid of the Selly, I really think I could have won with Mamoswine, just clicking Ice Shard potentially. But we just never were able to put ourselves in a position where we could do that. But honestly, it's fine. Again, not our best team. I kind of had hope for a burn right there as well. But even then, I still lose to Decidueye pretty much. But yeah, it just wasn't in the cards this time, unfortunately. As we're going to Ice Shard, we're not going to knock it out. And then we're going to go down to a Heavy Slam, and that is going to be the game. So unfortunately, we lose week 8, but not the biggest deal in the world. We still do make playoffs. We have a rematch against Gohan, so hopefully we don't get bullied by Thwacky again, as that would be ridiculously embarrassing. But we're going to end the season at 4-4, which I'll definitely take after a 1-3 start and starting off pretty poorly. Getting a couple big wins there in the middle of the season was really, really clutch for us. So I'll definitely take it. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into round 1 of playoffs. Alrighty, so round 2 of playoffs, we're going up against Granky again. Of course, we don't get anybody we haven't played or anybody even beaten regular season. We got another rematch, a very recent one at that. But again, I didn't build my team in week 8, so I felt pretty comfortable in building my own team this time. Pretty different squad we ended up coming up with. We have a bulk up Lumberry, Cinderace. There was a Toxapex on this roster as well that didn't come to either game. But we're Pyro Ball, Zen Headbutt, bulk up, and Taunt. I believe, yeah, we're Taunt just for Haze and Recover and stuff like that in case they want to come. And then we're a Life Orb 3 attacks D4 Gladius, just because I didn't want to deal with webs again. Didn't end up coming, but I didn't want to end up dealing with webs again. We see that there's like no hazards in the opposed team other than rocks on Arrow potentially, or rocks on Chomp. But I would rather have it than not have it at the very least, so whatever, you live and you learn. Excuse me, gosh. I've done that 3 times in this video. It's probably going to be 4 too. I can kind of feel another one coming on. And then we're a Life Orb Mamoswine again. Really, really great breaker in this game. It's Ice Shard's a great endgame win con if we can chip some things down. Like the getting rid of Conk and chipping down Selly and stuff like that. Hopefully it's not offensive Selly again, because ooh, bad. Then we're a Rocky Helmet knockoff, Moonblast, Scald, Haze, Feedy. Pretty physically defensive. We have Haze, so things like Celesteela can't set up on us freely. Which is obviously very, very nice. Then we have a pretty physically defensive Reggie Rock, pretty similar to last time, to be completely honest. And then a Choice Specs Toxtricity, because it's another mon. If I click the right button, I can definitely claim a KO pretty darn freely, so I will definitely take it. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into the match. We end up leading off with our Tapu Fini, as we see a Conkeldurr lead, and this is honestly best case scenario. I end up going for a knockoff turn 1 just because I feel like it's my best overall play. I knock off this thing's Life Orb, so we see that it's Life Orb Sheer Force probably, as we see a Poison Jab come out. And this next turn I'm just going to go for a Moonblast, and it does end up pivoting out, which is unfortunate. We see that's a really, really split out Decidueye, but I'm going to make the pivot out into Toxtricity right here. As it ends up going for a Leaf Blade. Now, I still don't deal with this Pokemon super well. I'm going to go for a Volt Switch here. Maybe I should have just gone for the obvious Snarl, because it would have at least done a little bit of damage to the Garchomp right there. Unfortunate, but I'm going to make that aggressive switch into Latias again, as he ends up Dragon Tailing, showing us that he's probably a pretty defensive Garchomp. And because of that, I feel pretty safe just staying in with Reggie Rock and getting up my rocks. Conkeldurr is going to come out this next turn. I make the play out and just have the Fini right here, not wanting this thing to Drain Punch up or anything like that, as it does end up Drain Punching, and because of Tapu Fini's pretty crazy bulk, we're able to live this next Mach Punch and knock it out with a Moonblast, which is, again, very, very nice. So I'll definitely take it. Arrow's going to come out this next turn. Rocks are up. I can't really do too much about getting Fini back in. It's at 2%. No reason to save it at this point, as it's going to knock us out right there. Reggie Rock's going to be able to come out this next turn, and out comes the Celesteela. Unfortunately, we are going to just miss our Stone Edge. The next turn I go out and harden to Toxtricity, trying to avoid something, but it's going to auto. And as embarrassing as this is, especially because we literally lost like this literally 2 weeks prior, That's the game. There's absolutely nothing we can do. I'm just gonna put on hyper fast because there's nothing we can do with this thing's coverage. Nothing at all, unfortunately. Very, very embarrassing to get smashed for this one again. But looking back, I don't know what else I could have done better. I had Haze on Feeny this time, but I don't know how the draft I had didn't auto get smashed by Auto Selly. Maybe it's just me not building great, not knowing how to use the team correctly. I don't know. It was definitely very, very frustrating though, for sure, to just like get smashed like this, but the same set twice. It's just a little bit different. It was mixed this time, so just physical. But I still think we had a great season. Greggy's obviously a good player, so, you know, kudos to him, obviously. And we just, you know, came up short again. But I really loved our team this season. I think it was a great bounce back season, obviously starting off 1-3 and then making it to playoffs and clinching by like week 7, which is pretty crazy. Able to have some really dominant performances by like Tapu Fini, which I love. Cinderace did great again, claimed a bunch of KOs as it's supposed to do. And it was really interesting seeing a metagame where boots weren't a thing in Gen 8. I really did think that was a really interesting idea to explore. I wonder if they'll do it again. Let me know what you guys thought of the run, thought of the team. Make fun of my very mediocre play and some of my losses in the comments below. It just pushes me in the algorithm, so I'd appreciate it. Let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this, like movies. This is the last one. I've gotten a few people reach out to me saying, like, hey, make more movies. So if you want to see more of them, definitely let me know. I'd be for sure down to do so. And yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.